getting educated ahead of time. And the reason I want this to be its own point that I share with you guys today is because it is so important and it's something that so often gets missed, overlooked, and just not given the time it really needs and deserves. And because of that, a lot of people that do choose to move out here and buy a home, they end up selling and buying a different home a couple years later because they didn't really land in the spot that made the most sense for their lifestyle and what they were looking for in that perfect home. So one great way to avoid that is, like we were talking about earlier, just understanding and learning the neighborhoods. So quick plug here, if you guys go to adamstillsdenver.com, I put a lot of time and effort and money into my website, and I have a really cool interactive map. It's got over 20 of my favorite, but also just the main areas within Denver. And in each of these 20, you can click on it. You can learn a little bit more about the types of homes in those areas, price ranges, maybe if they have good walkability, what schools are in the area, and also some of the commute times that you might be faced with. So with all those different characteristics, that's going to really start to help you understand whether or not these certain areas really make the most sense for you. Because pictures, they're not going to tell you how a neighborhood feels, and that is what's most important. So now, once you understand those neighborhoods a little bit better, the second part of this is going to be understanding the actual buying process itself. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or you've bought and sold 20 homes, it's still really important to understand the differences that maybe Colorado has in comparison to the state that you're moving from. Every state's a bit different. Every state has little, certain things that are intricacies that might be a little bit different, and strategies to ensure that you do get the best home at the best price and the best terms. And a lot of that comes down, again, to understanding the buying process itself. I actually do a full, really helpful online free webinar every single month on the home buying process. So if you guys want, feel free to grab a seat to the next one. Seats are limited. It's webinar.adamstillsdenver.com. But in that, I also explain how I have a 5-step framework that I use. And this really applies whether you're buying, again, your first home or you're 20. Step 1 is always all about clarity. And the way I like to describe this is before you start going out looking at homes, you and your spouse or partner, whoever you're going to be living in this new home with, you need to sit down and you really need to have an honest conversation and start to define a few things. First, you need to define what are your non-negotiables. 2, you need to understand what are your must-haves and what are some of your nice-to-haves. Now, this sounds simple, but it really is a huge part and something that can make such a difference if you just go through this process and spend a little bit of time doing this. For example, if one of you really values walkability and the other really feels like they need a 3-car garage, these two decisions are pretty different from one another, and they might need to be worked out a bit before emotions start to get involved. Because at the end of the day, the buyers who do this work, they're the ones that are going to move faster, they're going to negotiate better, and they're probably going to have a lot less regret later on.